Hi, journalist and author Joe Doran here. From early 2021 to early 2026, I wrote quite a few magazine articles on futurism topics, things like AI, genetics, technocracy. I made plenty of predictions of things before they happened. And recently what I decided to do is feed some of my touchstone articles into Google's AI podcasting software. And so this episode right here is a podcast involving my ideas surrounding synthetic devolution. Hope you enjoy it.
You know, when you bite into a fresh apple, you don't really question what it is.
Yeah.
It grew on a tree, it has seeds, maybe a few little blemishes. It's just, well, an apple.
Yeah, exactly.
But imagine taking a bite and realizing it was perfectly engineered in a lab somewhere. No seeds, no bruises, sourced from a corporate patent rather than like an orchard.
Wow, yeah.
It looks like an apple, but fundamentally you are interacting with a completely different piece of hardware.
And it's that exact shift from the organic to the engineered that's creeping into spaces we rarely even think to look.
Mm.
We operate under this assumption that the natural world is a fixed base level reality.
Mm-hmm.
But the source material we are looking at today argues that we are rapidly and quite intentionally moving away from that.
We really are. So, welcome to today's deep dive. We are unpacking a massive, highly provocative thesis by author and journalist Joe Doran.
It's a big one.
Oh, it really is. We're looking primarily at a January 2024 piece he published in the Trends Journal called The Synthetic Devolution, along with a whole stack of his supporting research covering Bio-Pharma, AI, synthetic foods, societal shifts, you name it.
Right.
Now, right out of the gate, Doran's piece is intense. It is highly critical of modern technological and social movements, and honestly, highly controversial.
Yeah, we need to be clear about that.
Exactly. So to you listening, we aren't here to endorse his politics or condemn them. We are strictly here to map his arguments, impartially report the data, and extract his core thesis, which is that we have essentially entered the sin century.
The sin century, yeah. And Doran's overarching argument here is that every single aspect of human life, from the fundamental genetic makeup of the food sitting in your pantry right down to the nature of your romantic relationships, is being systematically replaced.
Replaced by what, exactly?
By synthetic, technocrat-designed alternatives.
Okay, let's start with that title, The Synthetic Devolution. Because when we talk about giant technological leaps, like the internet or the steam engine, we call it a revolution.
Right.
A step forward.
Sure.
He is explicitly framing this as a step backward, a devolution. Why?
Well, it comes down to how he defines what is actually happening. Doran views the synthetic devolution as a fundamentally technocratic religion.
A religion.
Yeah, it's this unshakable belief that science and artificial intelligence can not only augment, but completely replace naturally evolved organisms and traditional human processes.
Wow, okay.
And he argues this is being driven by two massive forces colliding. First, you have enormous profit motives from big ag and big tech who, they want to patent these synthetic replacements.
Right, because you can't patent a natural apple tree.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
you can absolutely patent the proprietary genetic sequence of a lab-grown alternative.
That makes sense. Follow the money. And what's the second force?
Radical ideological goals. He points to movements like transhumanism, intense population regulation, and the degrowth movement.
Ah, the degrowth movement.
Yeah, which aims to combat climate change by heavily restricting natural human activity and consumption. And he leans heavily on the philosophical perspective of scholars like Matthew Liu to explain this.
What does Lou say about it?
Liu notes that classical science used to try and understand the immutable laws of nature so we could, live within them. Modern science, however, seeks to conform the world to the mind instead of the mind to the world.
Conform the world to the mind. Okay, let's unpack this.
Oh, Ford.
So it's like replacing a living forest with plastic trees because you're annoyed by having to rake the leaves in the fall.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. You implement a synthetic solution that solves a very specific human-defined problem, but it completely ignores the mechanism of the natural order. The plastic trees don't produce oxygen. They don't support an ecosystem. But surely Doran concedes there are some positive applications to these technologies. Like, it can't be all bad.
Oh, he absolutely does. And the scale of the positives is highly impressive. For example, he points to synthetic biology breakthroughs in textiles. Look at lab-grown cotton. Through cellular agriculture, scientists can grow cotton fibers directly from cells without having to grow the entire plant.
Wait, really? Just the fibers?
Yeah, just the fibers.
Oh.
And that takes 18 days and uses 80% less water compared to the 180 days and massive agricultural footprint required for natural cotton.
That is wild.
It is.
Yeah.
He also highlights how synthetic biology is successfully being used to save the American chestnut tree from a pathogenic fungus that nearly wiped it out.
Well, those seem like undeniable wins, right?
They are, but Doran views them as Trojan horses.
Ah.
His argument is that these localized, undeniable benefits are being used to lull society into accepting a much broader, systemic shift that ultimately harms humanity.
Because you get used to the convenience.
Exactly. Because once you establish the precedent that the synthetic alternative is always more efficient, you open the door to replacing everything.
And if these tech companies view the supply chain and agriculture as just draft code waiting to be optimized, it's a terrifyingly short leap to realize they view the consumer the exact same way. And the most immediate way this enters your life as you're going about your day is through what you eat.
Oh, the scale of bioengineered food is staggering, and it's heavily obfuscated.
So hidden, basically.
Very much so. If you look at the November 2023 Federal Register, the list of bioengineered foods isn't just obscure industrial ingredients. It includes everyday, highly processed items.
Yeah, I was looking at this list from the text. We were talking about chewing gum, graham crackers, taco shells, hamburger buns. It's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But the author points out exactly how companies are keeping consumers in the dark. They use a QR code loophole on the packaging.
Right, the QR codes.
Mechanistically, instead of a clear warning label printed on the box that says, this contains bioengineered ingredients, the FDA allows them to just print a little QR code that says, scan here for more food information.
Which no one does.
It's exactly. They know the friction is too high. You aren't going to stand in the grocery aisle with your phone scanning every single box of cereal to see if it was genetically modified.
It's compliance without transparency. And we need to distinguish exactly what kind of engineering we are talking about here because the technology has shifted rapidly.
Okay.
There's a massive difference between older GMOs and newer genetically edited, or GE foods.
Break that down for us. What is the actual difference in the science?
So, older GMO techniques were somewhat clumsy. They often involve taking genetic material from one organism and forcing it into another.
Like crossing two totally different things.
Yeah, like taking a gene from a fish that resists cold and putting it into a tomato.
Yeah.
It's transgenics.
Right. Okay.
But newer GE foods use tech like CRISPR. CRISPR acts like a highly precise molecular pair of scissors.
Scissors?
Yeah, it uses a guide RNA to locate a very specific sequence within the organism's own DNA, and it cuts it. It's literally a biological find and replace function.
Oh, wow. So you aren't introducing foreign DNA at all.
Exactly. You are just editing the existing code.
Which sounds cleaner, but the author raises a massive red flag regarding the oversight of that exact process.
Right, because since CRISPR doesn't technically introduce foreign DNA, the FDA classifies it as being essentially similar to traditional natural plant breeding.
Oh, wait, really?
Yeah. And because of that classification, the FDA does not require long-term human studies for these newer GE foods before they hit the consumer market.
Which brings us to the data on what happens when you consume it. Doran cites a major 2022 Springer Open study.
Mm-hmm.
This was a massive study of studies evaluating the existing research on genetically modified food consumption in animal models.
And the review found massive methodological flaws across the board.
Really? Like what?
We aren't just talking about a few bad data points. Mechanistically, the studies used to justify the safety of these foods lacked double-blind procedures, they used improper randomization of the animal subjects, and they failed to conceal allocations.
So they were basically designed to find safety.
Exactly. But even with all of those built-in biases, this massive review still linked GM consumption to severe adverse events in the animal models.
Like what kind of events?
Things like organ abnormalities and noticeably decreased learning abilities.
Wow. And if we are mapping and manipulating the food we eat at a granular genetic level, the timeline to doing that to humans isn't theoretical. It's happening.
It's happening right now.
The text mentions Oak Ridge National Lab. They are using their Summit supercomputer, which is one of the most powerful machines on the planet, to map human proteins.
Mm-hmm.
The explicit goal mentioned by researchers there isn't just healthcare. They are looking to potentially engineer organisms and eventually human biological responses to help mitigate the effects of climate change.
Which is a huge leap.
And we also have the 2023 U.S. approval of human gene editing to actually treat sickle cell anemia.
And this is where Doran argues the line is completely crossed.
How so?
Well, while using CRISPR to treat a painful, debilitating genetic disease like sickle cell seems like an undeniable triumph of modern medicine, Doran is warning about the precedent it sets.
Okay.
He argues this specific approval is the wedge that opens the door to heritable gene editing, or HGE.
Explain how HGE works.
Current gene therapy for sickle cell is somatic, meaning it only affects the individual patient receiving the treatment. The edits die with them.
Right.
Heritable gene editing means altering the germline. It means making edits to the human genome that get passed down to your children and your children's children, forever altering the human gene pool.
Wow.
Yeah. Doran forecasts a future of genetic legislation where governments might mandate germline alterations to make humans more environmentally friendly or to preemptively edit out specific behaviors.
Hold on, I have to challenge his logic here.
Okay, let's hear it.
Curing sickle cell is a medical miracle. Is Doran seriously suggesting we should let generational, excruciating human suffering continue just to preserve some arbitrary definition of a natural human genome?
It's a tough question.
Where exactly does he draw the line between life-saving medicine and this synthetic devolution?
Well, he doesn't deny the immediate relief to the individual patient. Where he draws the line is at the hubris of viewing the human genomic pool as unoptimized software.
Ah, I see.
Doran argues that once we collectively accept the premise that human DNA is just draft code waiting for a patch, we lose the right to remain naturally human.
Because it won't stop with just diseases.
Exactly.
Yeah.
His fear is that technocrats won't stop at curing fatal diseases. The mechanism of editing will inevitably be used for mandatory enhancements or restrictions based on whatever the elite class deems an ideological crisis at the time.
Which brings up the most important question. Who is actually funding and driving this research?
That's the million-dollar question.
If germline alteration carries species-level risks, who has their hands on the steering wheel?
The sources point to massive private investment players, specifically focusing on Wellcome Leap and CEPI. That's the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations.
Okay.
These aren't fringe think tanks. They're organizations flush with billions of dollars, led by highly connected figures.
Like who?
Wellcome Leap was formed by Regina Dugan. She is the former director of DARPA, the Pentagon's advanced research arm, and she later led highly secretive tech projects at Google and Facebook.
Wow. Okay.
And CEPI was founded by Richard Hatchett, a key figure in U.S. biomedical defense and pandemic planning.
And the research they're funding goes way beyond better vaccines. Take Wellcome Leap's 1,000 Days Initiative.
Right. The 1,000 Days Initiative proposes developing technology to visually and biometrically monitor newborns 24/7.
247.
Yes, and we need to look at the mechanism of how this works. We are talking about wearable sensors tracking a baby's eye movement, vocalizations, and motor skills, and feeding that continuous stream into a centralized database.
Right. It's literally treating a child's early development like an algorithm training a machine learning model. It turns a baby's first steps or first words into a binary set of training data points. And the terrifying part of the documentation is that if a child's data points aren't meeting specific cognitive developmental goals within a narrow algorithmic window, it triggers automated interventions.
Yeah, it's very intense.
The text even suggests this could theoretically extend to removing the child to foster care if the biological parents are deemed unoptimized for the child's development.
And the experimentation goes deeper into human biology. These organizations are funding research into in vitro brain assembloids.
Wait, what are those?
These are lab-grown 3D models of human brain networks created from stem cells, used to test how neural pathways form and react. They are also funding chimeric experimentation.
Chimeric, like the myth.
Sort of. It's
Yeah.
the literal mixing of human and animal genetics at the embryonic level.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It sounds like these organizations view the human body the way an IT department views a fleet of company laptops. It's just hardware waiting for a mandatory OS update. But there's a massive flaw in that logic. If there's a bug in the code, you can't just reboot a human being.
No, you can't.
You can't issue a software patch for a genetic mistake that has been permanently coded into a new generation.
And that permanent alteration is the ultimate goal, according to Doran. He identifies this entire movement as transhumanism.
Okay, transhumanism.
He argues that these elites genuinely envision a future where they can merge their biology with machines to achieve extreme life extension, heightened intelligence, and unprecedented control.
And what happens to everyone else?
Well, the natural human masses who either can't afford these genetic upgrades or ethically refuse them will be left behind. They'll become an outmoded, heavily regulated underclass operating on unpatched legacy biology.
Legacy biology, that's a chilling phrase. But the technocratic push doesn't stop at our physical biology.
No, it doesn't.
According to the text, it extends directly into your mind, your creativity, and your daily reality through AI and virtual spaces. Doran argues that artificial intelligence is actively being positioned as an ideological checkpoint.
Let's look at the specific examples in the text because they are incredibly revealing.
Okay.
Take Elon Musk. He recently discovered that his Microsoft Word program was literally scolding him over his word choices while he was typing.
Scolding him.
Yeah. The AI wasn't just checking his spelling. It was policing his language in real time for ideological compliance, suggesting more inclusive alternatives before he even finished his thought.
That's crazy. And the author talks about stealth revisions happening on e-readers like the Amazon Kindle.
Yes.
You buy a classic book in 2015, you think you own it, but you really just own the license. You connect your device to Wi-Fi in 2024, the device silently syncs, and suddenly a paragraph describing a character is completely rewritten to fit modern ideological sensitivities.
Completely changing the text.
Right. No notification, no version history.
It's the curation of a synthetic history.
And this is the realization here that ties everything together. Whether it's CRISPR quietly editing a single strand of your physical DNA in a lab, or a Kindle update quietly editing a single paragraph of a classic book on your nightstand, the mechanism is exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
It is a retroactive, invisible alteration to reality that completely bypasses human consent.
That is a perfect synthesis of Doran's point. And this synthetic substitution extends into how we socialize, too.
Oh, like the metaverse.
Exactly. The massive corporate push for the metaverse-like Meta's rollout of their Ray-Ban smart glasses is viewed by Doran as a corporate-controlled substitute for real human interaction.
And they frame it in a very specific way, don't they?
They do. What's really telling is the mechanism of how it's marketed. It's heavily pushed under the guise of being climate-friendly.
Right.
The elite narrative, according to Doran, is that during the COVID lockdowns, the Earth healed because humans stayed indoors and stopped moving. So the metaverse is presented as the ultimate climate solution, a way to travel, consume, and socialize without leaving a carbon footprint.
But the cost of that virtual retreat is steep, especially when you look at AI romantic companions.
Yeah, that part is wild.
The deep dive gets into companies like Digi that create these hyper-realistic, Disney-like virtual girlfriends and boyfriends. And the societal impact is already quantifiable.
It is. Doran quotes Washington University professor Liberty Vittert, who notes that this synthetic companionship is directly contributing to a demographic death spiral in the United States.
A death spiral.
Yeah, she points out the raw data. There were 600,000 fewer births in the U.S. in 2023 relative to just 15 years prior.
Wow.
We are actively replacing the friction, the compromise, and the biological reality of real human relationships with perfectly compliant, perfectly tailored synthetic algorithms that train themselves on your desires so they never disagree with you.
Since we are talking about AI, I have to point out a massive contradiction in the text regarding Elon Musk.
Oh, yeah.
The author uses Musk constantly as a cautionary figure regarding AI overreach. But if Musk is out there sounding the alarm about the existential dangers of artificial intelligence, why is he simultaneously pouring billions into Neuralink?
Right, his brain chip company.
Yeah, a company whose explicit stated goal is to surgically implant computer chips into the human brain. How does Doran reconcile that?
Doran actually addresses that head on. He argues that Neuralink is Musk's huge blind spot.
Really?
Yeah, Musk fears AI will eventually outpace and destroy humanity, so his solution is to physically merge human neurology with AI so we can keep up. Doran sees this as the ultimate tragic contradiction of the transhumanist mindset. In order to save humanity from the synthetic threat, you must completely synthesize humanity. You destroy the natural human in the very process of trying to preserve their relevance.
That mindset that reality must be altered to fit the model is what Doran argues is reshaping our social fabric. He calls this synthetic societies.
And this is where his cultural critique is sharpest. Doran argues that several current social movements are just manifestations of this synthetic devolution.
For instance,
he looks at the body positivity movement. Rather than seeing it as a victory for self-acceptance, Doran argues it is a synthetic perception of reality.
That's so.
He cites claims that this movement is potentially being encouraged by the highly processed food industry.
Wait, the same people making the bioengineered food we talked about earlier.
The very same. Mechanistically, if you can convince society that the detrimental physiological health effects of obesity are actually just a positive lifestyle choice, you protect the profit margins of the companies selling the unhealthy food that causes it.
Wow, that's a bold claim.
It is. The text also outlines Doran's firm stance on transgenderism. He frames gender transition procedures in the article as a horrendous industry and a diluted rejection of the natural.
Okay.
The sources cite that thousands of doctors, including the American College of Pediatricians, have actively sued the Biden administration to stop mandates that would force them to perform gender transition procedures, especially on minors, because these doctors believe the procedures are physically harmful.
And how does that tie back into the overall thesis?
Well, Doran traces all of these societal shifts back to that exact same philosophical root we discussed at the start.
Conforming reality to the mind.
Exactly. Whether it's genetic engineering, AI virtual companions, or gender transitions, it is all driven by the technocratic belief that material reality is not fixed. Biological sex, the health consequences of obesity, the need for organic human connection. The technocratic view is that all of it is infinitely malleable to human will and ideology.
Okay, I have to step in here and offer a critical counter-argument.
Go for it.
Just to reiterate, we are purely mapping Joe Doran's thesis here. But couldn't an entirely different perspective be that these social movements aren't a synthetic menace at all, but simply an evolution of human compassion and personal freedom?
Sure, absolutely.
Why does the author assume that whatever is natural automatically equals morally right? Nature is full of disease, starvation, and arbitrary cruelty.
And that is the exact friction point of this entire debate. Doran operates from a foundational belief that nature possesses inherent wisdom, boundaries, and immutable laws. When we break those laws, he believes systemic chaos ensues.
Right.
But someone looking at the exact same data could argue that overcoming the brutal, arbitrary limitations of nature, whether that's a genetic disease, a restrictive social role, or the pain of physical distance, is the highest expression of human progress.
It really all comes down to whether you view technology as a tool to navigate the real world or a tool to completely overwrite it.
Very well said.
Which brings us to the ultimate takeaway for you listening. Whether you completely agree with Joe Doran's politics or you fundamentally reject them, the underlying mechanistic trend he is pointing at is undeniable. You are living in an era where the lines between the natural and the engineered are completely evaporating. From the QR codes hiding the genetic origins of your cereal, to the AI silently rewriting your classic literature, to the private firms actively working to algorithmically monitor and alter human DNA.
It's all connected.
It is. The synthetic devolution demands your active awareness. If you aren't paying attention to the code being rewritten around you, you risk sleepwalking into a synthetic reality that you never actually consented to participate in.
And that leaves us with a final, somewhat unsettling thought to mull over.
What's that?
If we continue down this path, if our food, our immune systems, our history books, and even our romantic partners all become perfectly synthesized, perfectly optimized, and completely algorithmically controlled, will human intuition and our capacity to make beautiful organic mistakes eventually be classified by an AI as a genetic glitch that simply needs to be edited out?
Are natural human blemishes going to become the bugs in the system?
It's a heavy thought.
It really is. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you, keep looking closely at the apples you're buying, and we'll see you next time.